13 years after a family buried their son with their own hands, they found him alive in another country with a wife and children. How can the dead return? This is the story that shook a whole village.
That night, after the shouting and tears outside his door, Kwagu lay restless on his bamboo bed. His wife and children slept soundly beside him, but sleep refused to visit him. Every time he closed his eyes, strange images came. A dusty compound, a woman's voice singing softly as she cooked, a young man carrying goods into a small shop, laughing with neighbors, a coffin lowered into the earth. He sat up suddenly, sweating, his chest pounded as if he had been running. He pressed his hands against his face and whispered to himself, "Who am I? Why do these pictures haunt me?" His wife stared, confused. "My husband, what troubles you?" Kwagu forced a smile. "It is nothing, just bad dreams." But deep inside, he was trembling, because the woman in the dream, the one crying by the coffin, looked exactly like the woman who had called herself his mother earlier that day. As the night deepened, the dreams returned, this time clearer. He saw himself as a young boy climbing mango trees. He saw a man, stern but proud, teaching him how to weed a farm. He heard a little girl's laughter calling him brother. He woke again, gasping, his heart racing. The memories felt real, too real. By morning, Kwagu's eyes were red. He avoided looking at his wife, afraid she might see the storm inside him. Outside, the family was still waiting. His mother had refused food, sitting by the roadside with swollen eyes. His father stood silently, watching the door like a hunter waiting for prey. And though Kwagu told himself over and over that he was not Takimbi, the dreams whispered a different truth. The past was clawing its way back, piece by piece. By the third day, the family's patience had snapped. They had sat in the dust, cried their tears, begged, but Kwagu still denied them. The father finally stood and said, "If you will not call yourself Takimbi, then we will prove it with blood." The villagers gathered again, curious. The news had spread across the town like wildfire. Cameroonians and Nigerians alike wanted to see how this drama would end. The mother stepped forward, holding the small photograph she had carried in her bag all along. It was old and faded, but clear enough. In it, a young Takimbi stood smiling in front of his shop. She held it out with shaking hands. "Look, this is you. This was taken 2 years before you died. Will you deny even your own face?" Kwagu looked at the photo. His hands trembled. For a moment, his mouth opened as though words wanted to escape. But then he pushed it away roughly. "That is not me. I don't know that man." Gasps filled the air. The younger sister, who had kept quiet all this while, suddenly broke down. She ran to him, clinging to his shirt. "Brother, please, you used to carry me on your shoulders. You used to call me Little Bird. Do you not remember? Look into my face. It is me." Kwagu froze. His whole body stiffened at the name Little Bird. His lips trembled. His eyes darted away. He tried to speak, but nothing came. The father stepped closer, his voice heavy with pain. "A man can deny strangers, but he cannot deny his own blood. You may pretend all you want, but your body remembers, your blood remembers." The villagers murmured louder. Some nodded, saying the family was right. Others still insisted it was dangerous to claim him, that he belonged to a new life now. Kwagu pulled away from the girl's grip, his face hard. "Enough! Leave me alone. I don't know you. I am Kwagu, not Takimbi." But even as he turned his back, his shoulders shook. The family stared at him, broken but unyielding. They knew the truth was there, hiding behind his fear, and they swore they would not leave Cameroon until he admitted it.
After that day, something began to change in Kwago. He walked through the streets of Cameroon with a smile on his face, but inside, storms were raging. Every night, the dreams grew stronger. He saw his own funeral again and again, the crying villagers, the red earth falling on the coffin. He saw his mother tearing her clothes in grief. He saw his father standing silent, his face hard, but his eyes wet. The strangest part was the smells. At random moments, Kwago would catch the scent of shea butter and roasted groundnuts, smells that belonged to his Nigerian village, not Cameroon. When he closed his eyes, he could even hear the familiar sound of the market drums. One evening, as he lifted his little child, the boy looked at him innocently and asked, "Papa, why are you always sad when you smile?" That question cut him deeper than any knife. Meanwhile, the family waiting outside his house began to pray. The mother refused to eat or drink. She knelt in the dust, her voice cracking as she cried, "God of truth, if this is my son, let him remember me. Even if it is through pain, let him call me Mama once more." That same night, Kwago fell into the deepest dream yet. This time, it was not just shadows, it was a clear memory. Him as a boy, running into his mother's arms after a heavy rainstorm. She wrapped him in a dry cloth, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Tekimbi, my joy." He woke up screaming that name. His wife jumped up in fear. "What is happening? Why are you shouting another name?" But Kwago only buried his face in his hands. His body shook as tears he could no longer explain poured down. The next morning, when he stepped outside, his eyes fell on the woman who had refused to move for days, his mother. Her face was gaunt, her wrapper stained with dust, but her eyes burned with love and desperation. And for the first time, Kwago felt something break inside him. The sun was hot that morning, but the air around the pale blue house was heavy, almost secret. Neighbors gathered again, sensing something was about to happen. Kwago stepped out slowly, his face pale, his eyes swollen from nights without rest. The family stood immediately. His mother's hands trembled, his father's jaw tightened, his sister clutched the hem of her wrapper, praying silently. For a long time, Kwago said nothing. He just stared at them. Then, in a broken voice, he whispered, "Why do your faces live in my dreams? Why do I hear your voices when I close my eyes?" The mother gasped, rushing forward. "Because you are my son. Because no dream can erase the blood that binds us." Kwago fell to his knees suddenly, clutching his head. Tears poured freely. His voice cracked like dry wood. I remember the farm, the shop, the day of the accident. I remember everything. He choked, then shouted it out. "I am Tekimbi." The crowd erupted in cries and shouts. Some screamed and ran, calling it abomination. Others dropped to their knees, muttering prayers. The mother collapsed beside him, holding his face in her hands. "Say it again, my son. Call me Mama." Through sobs, he whispered, "Mama." She wailed loudly, rocking him like a child, her tears soaking his shirt. His father stood frozen, tears sliding down his stern face. At last, his sister clutched him tightly, crying, "Brother, I knew you would not forget me." But not everyone rejoiced. Kwago's wife stood at the doorway, her child on her hip, confusion and fear clouding her face. To her, the man she married was breaking into two. The villagers murmured louder. Some shouted that the family had bewitched him. Others said this was proof the dead could walk again. And right there in the dust, with the whole town watching, Tekimbi returned from the grave. Yet nothing would ever be the same again.
The crowd outside the pale blue house did not scatter. If anything, it grew larger. Some people climbed fences just to see the man who had called himself Kwagu, but was now crying as Tekimbi. His wife stood frozen in the doorway, her child pressed against her chest. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "What are you saying? Who is Tekimbi? You are my husband. You are Kwagu, the father of my children." Tekimbi, still kneeling in the dust, looked at her with pain in his eyes. "I am your husband, but I am also their son. I am Tekimbi. I cannot deny it anymore." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She staggered back, as if the ground had betrayed her. "So what am I to you then? A stranger? A mistake?" The villagers broke into loud arguments. One man shouted, "This is an abomination. The dead do not return unless witchcraft is at play." Another argued, "But see with your own eyes, it is him. The blood of his family has spoken. Who can deny it?" The mother clung to her son's shoulders, crying with relief, while the father's voice thundered over the noise. "Let no one call this witchcraft. My son was stolen from me once. I will not lose him again." But the wife shook her head furiously, holding her child tighter. "No, you cannot take him from me. He is mine. This is the man I built my life with. I will not let you people drag him back into the grave." The tension thickened. Some villagers moved closer, murmuring that the man should choose his old family or the new one. Others whispered that such a choice could never end well. And in the middle of it all, Tekimbi sat trembling, his two lives pulling him in opposite directions. One hand held by his mother, the other stretched towards his wife. The question no one dared to answer hung in the air. Can a man truly belong to two worlds at once? The shouting outside the pale blue house grew into chaos. Some villagers demanded that Tekimbi return with his blood family. Others insisted he remain with his wife and children in Cameroon. Caught between the noise, Tekimbi rose slowly to his feet. His face was wet with tears, his chest heaving. He looked first at his mother, then at his wife, then at the wide eyes of his little children who clung to their mother's wrapper. Silence fell as he spoke. "How can I choose? If I am Tekimbi, then I am your son. If I am Kwagu, then I am her husband and their father. But I cannot tear my heart into two." His mother held his hand desperately. "Come home with us, my child. We buried you once. Don't let us bury you again in our hearts." His wife cried out, her voice breaking. "And what of us? Will you abandon the life you built here? Will my children grow without their father?" The father stepped forward, his voice low but heavy. "Blood does not lie, but sometimes blood must also bleed." The words hung in the air, cutting deeper than a knife. Tekimbi staggered back, clutching his head. He cried aloud, "God, who am I? Am I the son that died or the man that lives? Must I lose one family to keep the other?" No answer came, only the cries of his mother, the sobs of his wife, the murmurs of the villagers, and the haunting sound of children calling, "Papa." At last, Tekimbi dropped to his knees in the dust. His voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. "Perhaps I was never meant to return. Perhaps I belong to neither world." He stood slowly, tears streaking his face, and walked away down the dusty road, neither towards Nigeria nor back into his Cameroonian house, just away, like a shadow caught between sunrise and sunset. The villagers watched in stunned silence. His mother fainted into his sister's arms. His wife wailed, clutching her children. His father stood like stone, his face unreadable. And just like that, Tekimbi, Kwagu, whoever he truly was, disappeared into the distance. Some say he never returned. Others claim he still walks between borders, never fully belonging anywhere. But one thing remained certain: the dead had touched the living, and nothing in that family's world would ever be the same again. That night, the compound was quiet, but inside the little room, the air was heavy with sorrow. His wife sat on the edge of the bed, her wrapper loosely tied, her eyes swollen from crying. The children were asleep beside her, their tiny breaths rising and falling like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She stared at the man she had called her husband for years, the man she cooked for, the man who had built laughter and struggles with her. Now the villagers were calling him somebody else's son.
Her chest tightened and tears spilled again. She pressed her palm against her mouth to keep from waking the children, but her heart was loud. She whispered into the darkness, "Why me, Lord? Why my own home? Didn't I give enough? I gave him my youth, my strength, and now they want to drag him away like I never existed." Suddenly, her youngest child stirred. The little boy rubbed his eyes and sat up. "Mama, why are you crying?" She quickly wiped her face and pulled him close. "Nothing, my son. Go back to sleep." But the child was not fooled. His small voice trembled. "Mama, will Papa leave us?" The words pierced her like a sharp knife. She hugged him tightly, rocking him back and forth. "No, my child, your father loves you. He will not leave you." Yet inside her, fear screamed louder than her words. She glanced at the man lying on the mat, his face turned away, lost in thoughts. He had not spoken to her all evening. He looked like a man torn in half. She lay back, pulling her children close. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks until the pillow grew wet. Sleep refused to come. Her heart whispered the same question over and over again. Am I about to lose my husband to the grave, even though he is still alive? By sunrise, the compound was buzzing. Word had spread beyond the village, and people were already gathering in small groups, whispering about the man who had died yet lived. Chickens clucked, goats bleated, but the heaviest sound was the pounding in everyone's chest. Takimbi's father arrived early, walking with his long staff, his jaw tight with determination. His eyes carried the weight of a man who had lost a son once and refused to lose him again. He stepped into the compound and called in a voice that shook the walls. "My son, come out. This is not a matter to hide from." Takimbi stepped forward, his head bowed, his wife close behind him with the children clinging to her wrapper. She had not slept, and her face showed it. The father's voice thundered again, this time softer but more dangerous. "My son, you belong to us. You are not Kwagun. You are Takimbi. You are our blood, our hair. You must come home. A man cannot run from his roots." His wife, trembling but fierce, pushed her children behind her and spoke up. "Papa, with respect, this man is my husband. He is the father of my children. For years, we built a life together. Will you now scatter everything I have because of blood?" The father's eyes narrowed. His grip tightened on his staff. "You talk of love. Love fades. Love is weak. Blood never fades. Blood does not lie." The words cut through the air like a blade. The villagers gasped. Some nodded in agreement, others shook their heads. The wife's voice broke as she pleaded, "But what about us? Are we not flesh and blood too? Are his children not blood?" The father turned, his old face hard as stone. "Children are many. Wife can be replaced. But a lost son returning from the grave, that happens only once in a lifetime." Takembi's knees grew weak. He looked from his father to his wife, his heart breaking. The wife clutched his arm, sobbing, "Please, my husband, don't let them take you from me." The compound grew quiet. The only sound was her crying and the father's heavy breathing. Everyone could feel it. A battle was unfolding, not with fists, but with love, blood, and destiny. That night, Takembi could not sleep. The stars above shone like watchful eyes, and the moonlight poured into the compound like a silent witness. His children had curled up beside their mother, their soft breathing a comfort he feared he might lose. He sat outside on a low wooden stool, staring into the fire, while the voices of his ancestors seemed to whisper through the crackling flames. His father's words echoed in his ears. "You are our heir. You cannot run from blood." Then his wife's tearful plea stabbed at his chest. "Please, my husband, don't let them take you from me." He buried his face in his hands. What kind of man, dies in one land, yet lives in another," he muttered. "How do I carry two lives on one head?" After hours of wrestling with his spirit, he stood up, trembling but certain. He entered the hut and knelt before his sleeping wife. She stirred and sat up, her eyes swollen from crying. "Tekembi," she whispered, her voice shaking. He held her hands, pressing them to his chest. "Listen to me. I cannot turn my back on my parents. They buried me with tears. They carried my name in sorrow. Now that I breathe again, I must honor them." Her lips quivered. "So you will leave us?" "No," he said firmly, his voice breaking. "I will not leave you. I will not leave the children. You are my blood too. You are my heart." She looked at him in confusion. "How can you belong to both?" He wiped her tears with rough, calloused fingers. "Then I will carry both. I will go to my parents, but you and the children will follow me. We will join them together. They will not lose a son, and you will not lose a husband." The wife's eyes widened. "But what if they reject me?" He smiled sadly. "Then they reject me too, because I cannot be theirs without you." Silence fell, heavy but powerful. She wrapped her arms around him, crying into his chest. The children stirred in their sleep, unaware that their father had chosen the most difficult road, one that tied two worlds together. By morning, his decision spread like fire through the village. The dead son would return home, but not alone. His wife and children would follow him into the house of his fathers. The next morning, the whole village was in uproar. Women fetching water at the stream gossiped in hushed but sharp voices. Men gathering in the square argued so loudly that their voices carried to the farms. Children, wide-eyed, whispered the story as if it were a folk tale. The man who died will return to his father's house, but with his wife and children. Some villagers nodded in approval. One elder said, "It is right. Blood must not scatter. His wife is his shadow. If he comes, they must come too." But others spat on the ground. "Abomination," a man shouted. "How can the living mix with the dead?" This man crossed to the other side and returned. He is not ordinary again. If he enters his father's house with strangers, he will bring curse on all of us. The chief of the village called a council meeting that same afternoon. The elders sat in a circle beneath the iroko tree, their walking sticks planted in the earth like roots. The air was thick with tension. The father of Tekembi stood proudly, staff in hand. "My son has made his choice," he declared. "He is ours, but he comes with his family. We must receive them." One elder shook his head. "And what of the gods? Will they not be angry? Who returns from the grave without consequence? We must be careful." Murmurs rebeat through the crowd. The mother of Tekimbi wept openly. "Do not speak against my son," she begged. "For years I mourned him. For years I poured libation for a child I thought was gone forever. Now he breathes again, and you would deny me joy." The wife of Tekimbi, holding her children close, spoke boldly though her knees trembled. "I am not a curse. I am a woman who loved her husband when the world thought he was gone. I bore him children, I cooked for him, I shared his tears and laughter. If you reject me, you reject the life he built in my womb and in my arms." Some women in the crowd clapped softly in support. Others muttered disapproval, crossing their arms. The chief raised his hands and silence fell. His face was stern. "This matter has divided our people. Some say it is blessing, some say it is curse. Until the spirits guide us, we cannot decide. We will watch, we will test. If his presence brings peace, we shall embrace him. If it brings misfortune, we shall know. Gasps filled the air. The village would wait, but with fear and suspicion in their hearts. Every step Tekimbi and his family took from that day forward would be judged, weighed, and whispered about. The man himself stood quietly at the center, his wife by his side, his parents on the other. He knew then that his return was not just a reunion, it was a trial. It was a night like no other. The moon was covered with dark clouds, and the wind carried strange whispers through the trees. People were still arguing about Tekimbi's return when suddenly an old woman in the village began to act restless. Mamangum, the oldest woman in the community, could not sleep. Her body shook, her mouth kept muttering things she didn't understand, and her eyes darted around like she was seeing shadows. She had carried a secret for too long, and now it was burning her chest like fire. By midnight, she stumbled into the village square, her wrapper barely tied, her hair scattered like broom bristles. She screamed into the night, "It was me! I did it! His death was never real!" The villagers rushed out of their huts, holding lanterns and torches. They surrounded her, wide-eyed. The chief himself was woken from sleep and came out with his staff. "Mamangum, what are you saying?" The old woman fell to her knees, pounding her chest. Tears rolled down her wrinkled face as her voice trembled. "Forgive me. I deceived the whole village. Tekimbi never died. I used witchcraft to cover his face with the shadow of death, so his family would bury an empty shell. I sent him far away, where he lost his memory of home." Gasps filled the air. Some women screamed. Others covered their mouths in shock. The chief roared, "But why? Why would you curse a whole family and make a mother mourn her son for years?" The old woman's voice broke like dry wood. "Because of greed. My own son was in the same spare parts business as Tekimbi. Tekimbi was hardworking, honest, and already becoming successful. I feared my son would never shine. So I went to the dark spirits. I begged them to remove Tekimbi from the way. I thought I was helping my son, but instead I destroyed two families." She wailed, rolling on the ground as the villagers hissed and spat at her. Tekimbi's mother fainted. Her father's hands shook as he tried to lift her. Her wife held her children tight, eyes wide with horror. Tekimbi himself stepped forward, staring at the old woman. His chest rose and fell like a storm. "So all these years, all my suffering, all my wandering, my mother's tears, it was your wickedness?" Mamangum nodded weakly, unable to meet his eyes. "Forgive me, my son. Forgive me before the elf swallows me alive." The villagers roared with anger, some demanding her banishment, others calling for her death. But the chief silenced them with his staff.
"This secret has shaken the foundation of our land. What has been hidden in darkness has come to light. Now let the spirits themselves judge her fate." The crowd trembled. For the first time, the mystery of Tekimbi's death had a face, a cause, and a price. And that price was about to be paid.